twin sisters Maya and Zara Johnson walked into the Elite Dragon Dojo for their very first class. The place radiated prestige, imported mats from Japan, spotless mirrors reflecting every move, and solemn portraits of masters watching from above. It was the kind of dojo where each monthly fee cost more than most people's rent. But before they could even step onto the main mats, two senior students blocked their path. Derek Walsh, a 19-year-old black belt, smirked as he folded his arms. "You two in the back, keep it down. This isn't the place for whatever style you're used to," he sneered, curling his fingers in mocking quotation marks. Beside him, Tyler Brooks laughed, tugging on his belt as if it were a badge of superiority. "Yeah, maybe boxing would suit you better," he added, "or those street scraps you probably know." Around them, 30 students pretended to practice while watching closely. Parents shifted uncomfortably in the bleachers. Sensei Mitchell adjusted a piece of equipment, deliberately ignoring what was happening. Maya inhaled slowly. She remembered what her father had told her a week earlier. "You'll face resistance. You always do." At the time, it had sounded pessimistic. Now, it felt like prophecy. "Discipline is something we know very well," Maya said evenly, her calm tone cutting through Tyler's laughter. There was no defensiveness in her voice, only quiet certainty, as though she had weathered storms far greater than this moment. Derek scoffed and nudged Zara's shoulder. "Then prove it. Take their place on the mats." That's when everything shifted. The sisters didn't bow, didn't step aside. Instead, their bodies slid into subtle, deliberate stances, nothing like the rigid lines of traditional karate. Their weight distributed perfectly, muscles loose but ready to strike, eyes calculating distance with precision. They looked less like beginners and more like predators who had already measured their prey. "How long have you trained?" Zara asked softly, studying Derek as though examining an insect under glass. 7 years. Why?" he shot back. "Professional curiosity," Maya replied, amusement flickering in her voice. The twins exchanged a glance, a silent communication only they could share. Derek suddenly felt a chill crawl down his spine. The way Maya tilted her head, the way Zara shifted her weight, the relaxed but strategic placement of their hands. None of it belonged to frightened newcomers. "I've competed across 3 states, Derek snapped, trying to reclaim control. "I've beaten fighters twice your size." "How many wins in the last 6 months?" Zara asked casually, as if discussing the weather. The dojo fell silent. The question cut deeper than any insult. Even Tyler faltered, frowning. For the first time, the unspoken hierarchy of the dojo trembled. The sisters wore white belts, but their presence suggested something hidden, something that could rewrite the balance of power in the room. Sensei Mitchell finally stepped forward, his voice measured. "Girls, I believe Derek and Tyler were just explaining our protocols." "Protocols," Maya repeated, rolling the word on her tongue. "Interesting choice." No one there imagined that these two so-called beginners carried a secret that would turn this traditional dojo into the stage for a lesson the martial arts community would never forget. Because sometimes, the most dangerous fighters are the ones who seem harmless at first glance. If you're enjoying this story of resilience and justice, make sure you hit subscribe, because what happens next will completely redefine the meaning of respect. 15 minutes later, the first official class began. Maya and Zara were placed in the far corner of the mat with the beginners, while Derek and Tyler strutted at the front, leading warm-ups for the intermediate group. "Basic stances for the newbies," Derek announced arrogantly, walking straight toward the sisters. "Let's see if you can at least stand up straight." The twins followed his instructions, but their movements were too precise, too balanced, too fluid for beginners. Anyone paying attention should have noticed. But Derek, blinded by his ego, only sneered. "Pathetic," Tyler muttered, shoving Zara's shoulder as if correcting her posture. 7 years here, and I've never seen anyone so uncoordinated." For the next 20 minutes, the so-called corrections turned into open hostility. shoves that bordered on strikes, harsh adjustments meant to humiliate, and sneering remarks about natural limits that echoed off the mirrors. Students averted their eyes. Parents whispered in the bleachers, but no one stepped in. Then Derek raised his voice for the entire dojo to hear. Self-defense demonstration. The newbies need to learn what happens when people don't know their place. Maya exchanged a look with Zara, the kind of silent exchange only twins can have. For a fleeting second, fire sparked in her eyes before she masked it with submission. "Tyler, grab her," Derek ordered with a dismissive wave. "I'll show you how to neutralize someone who thinks she's smarter than she is." But Maya didn't back away. She didn't protest. She smiled, and not the nervous smile of someone cornered, but the knowing smile of someone who had just been handed the moment she was waiting for. "Go ahead," she said calmly. That night, in the Johnson family apartment, retired Colonel Robert Johnson poured tea while his daughters iced the bruises on their arms. "They took the bait," Maya said, examining a purple mark. "Derek and Tyler think we're easy targets." "And Mitchell allows it all," Zara added bitterly, "as long as the parents keep paying." Robert, 52, had spent 25 years training elite soldiers in close combat before retiring. For the last decade, he had dedicated himself to training his daughters, blending Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, and more into a deadly mix. "How long can you keep this act going?" he asked. 2, maybe 3 weeks, Maya replied, flexing her fingers in the subtle way all fighters do before serious combat. "Derek's getting more aggressive. Tyler too." "Perfect," Robert said with a proud, calculating smile. "Let them think they've found the perfect victims. Let them feel powerful." Because the truth was, the Johnson twins weren't just high school girls looking for a new hobby. They were seasoned fighters on a mission. Through Robert's contacts, disturbing reports had reached him. Families quietly pulling their children from the dojo after similar incidents, whispering about mistreatment, but never able to prove anything. Every accusation was denied. Every scrap of evidence mysteriously vanished. Sensei Mitchell's spotless reputation remained untouched. "That's the problem," Zara noted, scrolling through the discreet photos she had snapped during training. "It all looks like normal instruction, if you don't know what to look for." "That's why you're there," Robert said firmly, "to gather enough rope for them to hang themselves." The girls were armed with more than just skill. Recording devices were sewn into their headbands. Tiny HD cameras were disguised as buttons on their uniforms. Their phones were rigged to transmit evidence to secure servers in real time. But above all, they had patience. The patience to endure weeks of hostility while quietly documenting every insult, every shove, every calculated humiliation. "Derek will push harder soon," Maya predicted, flipping through her notes. "He won't be able to resist." The attacker's patterns were becoming predictable. "He got frustrated today," Maya observed, "because we didn't react the way he expected." "And Tyler's pushing is turning into slaps," Zara added calmly. "Slaps will turn into punches." Their father, Robert, nodded. He had seen these warning signs in countless combat situations. "When that happens," he said firmly, "you know exactly what to do." The sisters smiled in perfect sync. Predators watching their prey step deeper into the trap. While Derek and Tyler slept soundly, dreaming of new ways to humiliate their supposed victims, Maya and Zara spent 2 more hours in their home gym. Every movement was sharpened, every counter perfected. The next confrontation would not just be remembered, it would rewrite the dojo's history. Because what Derek and Tyler could never imagine was this: their next targets weren't defenseless at all. They were seasoned fighters who specialized in exposing bullies and leaving scars those bullies would never forget. By the 3rd week at Elite Dragon Dojo, Derek was ready to escalate. "Special demonstration today," he announced, his eyes burning with malice as he pointed at the twins. "We're going to teach them respect through pain." Tyler smirked beside him, tightening his belt like a soldier drawing a weapon. "No beginner protections. Free combat, he added. Let's separate the girls from the real fighters. Sensei Mitchell stood at the edge of the mats, pretending to supervise warm-ups. He knew exactly what was about to happen, but chose silence. 30 students formed a circle, some uneasy, others eager for the spectacle that had become routine at the dojo. "My turn first," Derek growled, striking an exaggerated stance. "I'm going to break that arrogance piece by piece until you finally learn where you belong." But then, Maya did something that froze the entire room. Instead of clumsily faking the white belt basics she had been mimicking for weeks, she slid into a stance any seasoned fighter would recognize immediately. Low, balanced, coiled with lethal precision. Every muscle aligned with technical perfection. "Derek," she said softly, her calm voice carrying an authority that made the air itself heavy. "Are you absolutely sure you want this?" The question rattled him. The timid beginner he thought he knew had vanished. What stood before him now was something entirely different, something dangerous. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed. But the mask had already fallen away. The predator revealed itself. Derek launched a powerful high kick, perfect textbook karate, but to someone truly trained, it was predictable. Maya flowed out of range effortlessly and answered with a lightning-fast Muay Thai combination. One strike to the solar plexus doubled Derek over instantly. Gasps erupted around the dojo. Derek stumbled backward, eyes wide in disbelief. He had no time to recover before Tyler lunged desperately to save him. "She's just a white belt. This isn't possible," Tyler shouted. "She was," Zara corrected, her voice icy as she slid into her stance. "Now we are exactly what we've always been." Tyler charged recklessly, but Zara intercepted him with a clean Brazilian jiu-jitsu throw. His body slammed against the mat with a thud so sharp that several students recoiled in shock. Derek, coughing and wiping blood from his lip, tried to stand, but Maya was already there. In seconds, she locked his arm and forced him to the ground. His face was pressed against the mat, his superiority shattered into humiliating submission. "Stop, please," Derek gasped, his voice breaking under pain and shame. "I give up. I surrender." "Interesting," Maya said coolly, applying just enough pressure to remind him she could end it if she chose. 3 weeks of lectures about discipline, hierarchy, and respect. And now? The first time you face someone who fights back, you quit. Finally, Sensei Mitchell rushed forward, panic etched across his face as he saw his prize student crumpled beneath the newcomer's control. "Enough!" he shouted. "Stop this immediately. This violates every rule of the dojo." "What rules?" Zara asked coolly, pinning Tyler to the mat with effortless precision. "The same rules you ignored during 3 weeks of abuse?" At that exact moment, Maya pulled out her smartphone, still holding Derek down with one hand. "Sensei Mitchell," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut the silence, "would you like to explain to this live camera why you allowed your students to make jokes about monkeys learning human movements and so-called street fighting traditions?" The color drained from Mitchell's face. You recorded everything?" he stammered. 3 full weeks, Zara confirmed, producing her own device. "Every shove, every insult, every moment you looked away and pretended nothing was happening." Derek broke down in sobs, the reality finally sinking in. Please delete it. My parents, my university, my scholarship." Maya leaned close, her voice like ice. "Now you care about consequences? 3 weeks of humiliation, and only now you want mercy. Interesting how that works." Tyler, still trapped under Zara's hold, began to hyperventilate. "We didn't know. You acted like real beginners." "What did we seem like to you?" Zara asked, her voice dripping with contempt. "Helpless? Easy targets? People who wouldn't fight back?" Around them, the dojo was in chaos. Students whispering, parents gasping, phones held up to record every second. The balance of power had flipped so completely that it left everyone stunned. "Release my students immediately," Mitchell barked, his voice cracking, "or I'll call the police." Maya's smile was cold. Please do. I'd love to explain to the officers why 2 minors had to record everything themselves because the adults in charge refused to protect them. You tricked us, Derek wheezed through his tears. You pretended to be weak. We never lied, Maya replied. We are white belts in this dojo. You're the ones who assumed white belts meant defenseless. That's your mistake. Zara finally released Tyler, who scrambled away in terror. Maya let Derek go as well, leaving him curled on the mat, broken in body and spirit. By the way, Zara said, her voice steady as she stared Mitchell down, our father is Colonel Robert Johnson. You might have heard of him. The name landed like a thunderclap. Mitchell knew it well. Robert Johnson, the investigator famous for dismantling corrupt systems inside both the military and civilian institutions. He's expecting our final report tonight, Maya added calmly. All of the footage has already been sent to secure servers. The twins walked out in silence, leaving behind 2 shattered bullies and an instructor drowning in panic. The dojo had never felt so heavy, so quiet. Derek and Tyler, who once strutted with untouchable confidence, were now left to face the brutal truth. Their reputations, their futures, their dreams had all been crushed by the very girls they had underestimated. But this was not the end. It was only the beginning of justice. 6 months later, the Johnson sisters strode confidently through the halls of State University, not as students, but as guest instructors for the new martial arts anti-bullying initiative. Their lectures on discrimination disguised as tradition filled auditoriums. Schools across the state requested their workshops on how to identify and dismantle systematic abuse. Do you remember Elite Dragon Dojo? Maya asked an audience of 300 students. It closed for good in March. The investigation led by Colonel Johnson had been devastating. The twins' recordings were central evidence in a lawsuit that exposed years of targeted mistreatment, not only against black students, but against anyone outside the wealthy, closed-off social circle the dojo had quietly protected. Sensei Mitchell lost his instructor's license permanently and faced legal charges for institutional negligence. Elite Dragon Dojo was ordered to pay millions in damages to 17 families who had withdrawn their children under similar circumstances. As for the Bullies, Derek Walsh never competed again. His full scholarship was revoked after the video of his humiliation went viral, over 8 million views. Today, he works in the warehouse of his father's sporting goods store. Tyler Brooks abandoned martial arts altogether, struggling with severe anxiety whenever combat was even mentioned. And the Johnson sisters? They became symbols of what happens when strength meets discipline and when justice refuses to stay silent. Derek eventually left the state with his family after their businesses collapsed under a community boycott. The irony, Zara told her students, is that they spent months lecturing us about place and hierarchy, but they never understood that true strength doesn't come from colored belts or financial privilege. By then, Maya and Zara had opened their own gym, Dignity Combat Arts, dedicated to training young people who had faced discrimination. Their program blended martial arts with civil rights education and methods for documenting abuse. We don't teach our students to start fights, Maya explained. We teach them to recognize when a fight has already started, even if it's disguised as tradition or discipline. The applause was thunderous, but the real validation came from results. Dozens of discrimination cases in schools and gyms were exposed thanks to students trained under their system. Their documentation model became the national standard for investigating institutional bullying. From the back row, Colonel Robert Johnson watched proudly. His daughters had turned trauma into transformation, proof that the best revenge isn't destruction, but building something that uplifts others. Do you want to know the secret? Zara asked near the end of their lecture. Derek and Tyler were never the real enemies. They were just symptoms. The true enemy, Maya added, was the culture that let people like them thrive by humiliating others. Systems only change when they're confronted intelligently and documented beyond denial. A student raised her hand. How did you stay calm through 3 weeks of abuse? Because we knew, Zara said, that every shove, every insult, every humiliation was being recorded. They thought they were breaking us. In reality, they were building the case that would destroy them. Revenge, Maya concluded, wasn't defeating two bullies on the mat. It was turning our pain into power that protects hundreds of others who might have gone through the same abuse. Former students of Elite Dragon Dojo later sought the sisters out, apologizing for staying silent. Many became advocates in their own communities. Derek and Tyler, meanwhile, lived in social isolation, forever remembered as the so-called champions, undone by the very girls they mocked. The most important lesson, Maya told the auditorium, is that true strength isn't about who can strike the hardest. It's about who can turn injustice into justice, pain into purpose, and humiliation into education for future generations. The Johnson twins had turned 3 weeks of hell into a legacy of change. They showed that the best revenge isn't crushing your enemies, it's creating something so powerful, so positive, that everything they stood for becomes irrelevant. Sometimes justice isn't brute force. It's patience, intelligence, and the determination to build a better world. And if this story of resilience touched you, don't forget to subscribe, because here we share stories that prove true strength lies in transforming adversity into an opportunity for lasting change.